Hey, John.
Hey, Peter. Hi, Simon.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Smash. Hi, Stacy. Sorry,
Hi,
I
Stacy.
didn't go back to find your link.
No, that's okay. Sorry. And it didn't end up being in the calendar invitation, so sorry about that.
No,
Kathy,
but yeah,
I see that you're in here twice. Is that an accident or? I don't think it's too big of a deal, but
we can talk about it later, Simon. But actually, those invites, I got it. There was no way to use that to access, though.
yeah, sorry, that was my mistake, John.
My phone decided to try to connect on its own and I stopped it. Sorry.
You were the two I was calling for the link was Kathleen and John. But then locally I got response from Smash.
Yeah, well, I sent the calendar invite, which we should never let me do. We just have to leave this stuff to Samanish, and then it'll be much more likely that it'll happen correctly.
You know what that's like.
I cause nothing but trouble.
Well, that's true. That's very true.
There's Mr. Iverson from
That sounds
Occasion.
like John's MO, not yours.
Hello, David.
How are ya?
You still in a warm place?
Warm is a relative term. It's warmer than there, but not as warm as it was here past 2 weeks. It's 61 degrees and blowing.
Well, we hit 60 yesterday in Western PA, so that was fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be 80.
Most
didn't-
snow went away.
We didn't hit 60 in Nantucket.
No.
We did not.
The
That's
ocean's
Mind
too
you,
cold.
pretty good
June
day
thing.
yesterday.
It's a June thing.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Along with surprise snowstorms.
Yeah. That's why I'm in no hurry to get back.
No. But we miss you, David.
Oh, sure you do.
And David, you're ignoring my texts about, are you going to run
When did you text me that?
this morning?
No, you did not.
I did.
Wait, be careful, guys. We do have a member of our committee who is running, so we have to be.
That's okay. This is
Yeah.
small talk.
I am very comfortable with the 3 people. Well, 2 of the 3 people that are running.
All right.
So
I'll resend it. There's a
Yeah, I
reason,
don't-
and I'll resend it.
I don't think I got it, John. Oh,
Yeah.
you know what? I'm a liar. I did get it. It's
Don't
6
say
a.m.
anything. Just read it. Don't
Did you
say
see
a word.
that?
6 a.m. 6 a.m. I got that.
David, that
Yeah.
one of the 3 members who are running, I think the one who you're not thrilled with, voted against the clam shack.
He's in bed with the billionaires.
That was the subject of my text to David this morning.
Okay,
Oh.
this is being recorded.
Okay, no, we didn't say anything bad.
Not saying
No.
anything I wouldn't say in public.
I like
Okay.
your
Yeah.
green sweater, Peter.
Me-
Happy
Thank you.
Patrick's Day to everyone.
Just to
That's
be
right, thank
clear.
you.
Good pivot.
Yeah, so I think it's a good time to start this meeting. We're a couple minutes after. If anyone else wants to join, they are welcome to do so. And I think we do have one member of the public with us. Otherwise, it's members of our work group. So this is a subgroup meeting of focused on data for the short-term rental working group. The focus of this meeting is for you all to meet our data analyst consultant that's been hired by the town to support the work of this group. And as I shared with all of you, I think what we want to do is start by having Matt introduce himself and say a little bit about his team. And talk a little bit about the scope of work that he will be following and schedule. And then we'll talk a little bit about how Matt can work and his team can work best with the short-term rental working group. And then talk through any sort of questions, concerns, suggestions, et cetera, that you all have for Matt as he is kicking off his work. So Matt, let me hand this over to you.
Thanks, Stacy. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. So start off, my name is Matt Haffenreffer, longtime summer resident, been working on the island for in related work with data analytics for the last 3 years or so, maybe more. I run a company called Process First. We're a technology and data consulting firm. And I have 3 teammates that I'm going to pull onto this project with myself. One is Sam, is a project manager. She'll be keeping all our things organized and on point. And then the 2 others who are going to work with me on the data side. One is Carol. Carol is a PhD in data science and information management systems. And she has 2 areas of really relevant expertise. One, she teaches in data wrangling, integration, database management, as well as a career in that work. And she also works in research related to decision models to support community-based evaluation and support. And Alex is going to be the lead analyst. Alex will be doing a lot of the work, getting kind of into the dirty data cleaning and all the management and integration. He and I are already pretty far along in reaching out to all of the known data sources we have, or the ones that we're planning around. And yeah, and Alex has both worked with me in data analytics for years and also does work in commercial real estate. So he's familiar with some of the technical aspects of that, which is a good addition to our side of this. Beyond those 2, there's other teammates that we have that we can pull in with various expertise in software, data analytics, and more. On my end, so I've been in data analytics since I studied mechanical engineering, and I switched over to data analytics and software consulting. I've worked in a wide range of fields, from health around injury analytics, food systems, social services, and others. And so I've been working on Nantucket, and I work with a few different organizations. I work with the Nantucket Resource Partnership and a lot of the different partners they have, everyone from Fairwinds to the Food Pantry and NIFRA and a lot of others. I'll work with some of the food organizations specifically. And then I also work among the Land Bank's Agricultural Selection Committee, and I'm a board member at the Land Council. And then I wanted to share, sort of in going through all those things, that I also, within my broader family, we have a shack seasonal rental, or a shack rental that we share across a broader family that we both use and rent. I felt relevant to share with you all, just so you're clear on sort of background I have and upfront about everything. Yeah, so that's sort of a quick overview of me and my team. I'm sure there's more questions there. Stacy, would it make sense to start there, or just dive into sort of some of the plan and how I'd like to go about the work and the questions that I have?
Well, let's stop here and just ask anybody have questions about Matt, his team, his company, etc.
Okay. Matt, Peter Schaefer, how are you? Nice to meet
Hey,
you.
Peter, same.
Just a little, not a concern, just a question.
Yeah.
You specialize in food system, healthcare, and environmental. This has nothing to do with any of the 3. Maybe you can talk to us a little bit about how you, I know this one guy has some real estate experience, but how you think you can integrate your experience into what our needs are.
Yeah, well, I think what our specialty is managing data, and the field that data exists in or describes doesn't necessarily make the challenges of managing the data unique. There's a level of requirement to understand data, know how to infer what things mean when it's unclear, know where to source data from. The way I broadcast my business is around things that we generally focus on, but as we've worked more in support of Nantucket, transitioning into a project that has real estate and housing-based data isn't really out of our comfort zone at all. And Carol has specialty in spatial data and like GIS work that provides us all the technical experience we need to be able to handle the data. And we work with all the right people to both know that we either know how to inform or infer what data means, and always part of our work is working with others to really understand when there's specific nuance that we don't know. And so much of consulting is working with always at the edge of someone's challenge. There's always a new question, and we feel really comfortable with the work ahead of us.
How about finding data?
Sure.
Kathy probably might have a better point of view on that than I do,
Yeah.
but I know that's difficult, especially in this situation.
Yeah, so I can come back to that later. I was planning to walk through where I'm at with all the data sets that I expect to find.
Okay.
Do you want me to speak to our credentials in that regard, or did you want to talk about the data sources?
I'm just talking about our situation. I mean, every
Yeah.
number that you see on Nantucket is different than the number you saw last week. You know, whether it's from the federal government, state government, or the town of Nantucket. So how do you draw the line between what's real and what's not? That's really what I'm trying to come to.
Yeah, so
Yeah, let me
Yeah.
just jump in. Matt,
you.
maybe, why don't you address that? Make sure you address that as you start to talk about your scope of work. And
Fine,
if he hasn't sufficiently answered it, Peter will come back to it.
fine.
Thank you.
Any
Peter-
other questions, though, about anyone? It looks like Kathy and Dave both have questions. So Kathy?
Yeah, just quickly, Matt, hi.
Hey,
Um,
Kathy.
Hi, so I'm enjoying this because you're speaking my language. You know, I spent my career doing database analytics and procurements and public sector work. And so
Yeah.
for towns as well as the federal government. So I'm familiar with all of this. I think that one of the things that I always felt was important was blending the technology and the technology expertise of how to collect and manipulate and verify data, combine it and so forth, but also the
Yeah.
subject matter expertise of the data itself, because there's so many nuances. So I'm hoping that this group will be able to fill in that gap, and we'll be able to work closely with you on that, because there's just, it's very complicated. And I think some of us have been, mired in it for so long now. There's a lot of things that
Yeah.
just common knowledge that'll be helpful. I think that goes to what Peter's saying. And hoping we can help you with that. Thanks.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you.
Hi, hey, Matt, how are you? You look
Hey,
very,
Dave.
I think I've seen you around.
Been
You've
around.
Probably, yeah. So I want, and then please do not take this in a bad way, but I
Yeah.
think that it needs to be brought up because I've received a number of texts just about your relationship with the people that you serve on the board at the land council with. And I guess just all I want you to do is speak to that. You're a professional and your eye is on the ball, and relationships don't sway you're a professional.
Yeah.
But I've received a lot of feedback from people that have concerns. I don't share them, but I did promise them that I would bring it out to the light of day. So
Sure. Yeah, so I'm a board member of the Land Council. I think it's a 30+ member board. I think I joined, I think it's been about 2 or 3 years now, and I started during COVID, so I haven't even met everyone in person. I joined for my love of the environment, my goal of protecting it. A lot of the work I do, the place I've put most of my energy, has actually been working to address invasive green crabs in the harbor. I'd hopefully bring a new perspective to them and push them further into, areas of research and data. It's a big group of people and it's not a monolith. And I certainly have different opinions than many, I'm sure, and a lot of things I haven't even learned yet. But I know there's, I'm certainly aware of the fact that there's people on that group that others have concerns about probably what they believe in. And, I'm here to kind of unpack all the data, learn what it says. And part of being an engineer is I love when I learn things and learn more. And, there's no assumption that can't be broken or learned. I'm just here to figure out what data we have, what makes the most sense of it, and how to bring it to you all in a way that you can answer the questions that really you've come to me to help answer.
great, thanks. I'm sure data speaks for itself. Thank you.
Of course.
Okay. So with that, thank you, Matt. If you want to talk a little bit about your scope of work, your approach, timelines, et cetera.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about, we have kind of a generalized approach to working with data. And like all things that come with uncertainty, it changes as you learn more. The big thing for us is getting our hands on as much information as we can. All the important and large and significant data sources, figuring out where the gaps are. And we've started our outreach already. We've begun outreach, or have even kind of the final path towards. We have either begun the outreach or have a final path towards collecting all the major data sets, short of the NARAB data. And we've reached out, we have that connection, and we've started that conversation. Getting my hands on all that information will allow me to most quickly give you all the best sense of what's ahead. Because data, I think, as much as anything else, can have the most unknowns once you turn it up. Is it clean? Is it organized? Is it consistent? Is it in a format different than we're expecting? And really, I think the main challenge in this work is to take two data sets that aren't built necessarily to be integrated and bringing them together and figuring out how to uncover, how to create the most certainty and accuracy within data sets that overlap, that aren't built to be paired or keyed together, essentially. And so that's our main technical challenge in this work. And that's sort of really the one we signed up for. The rest of it is the analysis that follows building a data set that we think is appropriately accurate within the time constraints of the project. And I use that term because it's a little bit undefined until we get into it. And we also work with you all to figure out how you define certain things, something we'll come back to in a bit. Yeah, Kathy.
Just a quick question. I was, reading your
Yeah.
proposal, you had the list of the data sources, and I was kind of surprised that the Massachusetts registry wasn't included in that, because it does have a unique identifier for each STR property that is obeying the law and
Yeah.
registering. Do you plan to try to use that as a common
Yeah,
key?
we've already reached out to pursue that data set. I think
Okay.
at the time we just weren't sure which ones, how complete that would be. So weren't sure if, I think I see that as not at this point in the progression of the registry. My guess is that's not one of our primary data sets, but one that we'll use to help inform the integration of the two major data sets. But
Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
know what we know when we get our hands on it.
Okay, I was just concerned because it wasn't listed in one of your data sources, and
I have it on the important list, which is the data we're pursuing actively.
Okay.
Dave,
Have you worked with the UMass group before, Matt?
I have not.
You haven't, okay. And maybe a little insight to that
Yeah,
is
please.
my understanding, yeah, and I'm just talking about the state list, is
Mhm.
that the UMass group has the unique opportunity to be able to get all that information because they're a state agency of some sort, where Matt might have a little more difficult time breaking the seal. So it'll be interesting to find out as you reach out farther what happens, but that's what I've heard so far. But thank you.
Mhm.
yeah, Peter.
And Matt, how do you feel about the time schedule? I mean, is it something doable? Is it not, or at this point, it's hard to say, but I mean, are we asking for too much? Is it possible for you to get it done in the time restraints that we've given you?
So there's my two biggest things that I'm watching are, one, the timeline of NARAB data. And my hope is there's a way that I can manage, I'm working under my assumption is that everything's going to show up immediately and everything will be smooth, and in practice it won't be. And that's where we'll have to adjust. So my expectation, I'd say, I guess, unlike the sort of proposal assumption, is that data is going to come in late. And we're working on the way that we can best prepare to integrate the data sources, like structurally, so that once we get it, all that's left is the surprises of the completeness or like cleanliness of the data and our merging of the sets, as opposed to having to then go build a model to integrate the two. The other part of the timeline that will be tricky is just until we've seen all the information and we figure out how much is really manual cleaning versus more like script-based cleaning. Some of the stuff, you start working through your list and you remove the first quarter of things that are messy, and then the 5%, you get down to the single records, and sometimes those can take a significant amount of time. And so there's that's the big unknown that we hope to address as soon as possible, is how clean are the data sets towards our goal in particular. So it's a real non-answer for you, of course, but I think the most important thing is that I get you that answer as soon as I know it. Well, I need to get that answer for myself as soon as I can. I'll let you know it when I have it. And I think that those are the two things that I'm looking to manage on my end to ensure that we get something to you at the right time. And I think then a question for us to work through, and I'll work through Stacy to you all for this, is if the timeline changes, let's go to the worst case. The data is all as messy as it's ever been, and we don't get the NARAB data until 3/4 of the way through our timeline. How do we adjust our plans and scope to make sure that what I'm giving you does work in service of your goal? Or do we change the plan? Something will have to change in that, and it's either on me, on us, or on you. And that's what I'll work with you And I know that realistically that's a moving target and we're gonna have to work together. And that's gonna be a compromise that I do my best to help you hit, and I can't change what's out of my control.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, hi, Matt. It's John
Hi,
Kitchener.
John.
Yeah, I look forward to working with you.
Same.
This is really just a carrying on the timeline and milestones, because
Please.
you know we've this whole process has taken a little longer. I don't mean the data, I just mean the whole STR process has taken a little longer than we probably thought at the beginning. So what would be very helpful, I think, is if you could, you know, in a fairly short space of time, figure out what your plan is to get us across the deliverables timeline that you currently have, and really sort out for us a list of the key milestones that you have to hit to get it there, and what your dates are for each of the key milestone events. I mean, I'm sure this is nothing new to you. So,
Yeah.
But we have been lacking that sometimes in what we do. And I think with this one, and I understand, mate, I understand things are going to change and we're going to get disappointments and all that. But if we have a plan to start with that we can review with you together as each of the key milestones are coming up, you know, for me, I think we should, you know, have a quick, you know, it doesn't have to be a long meeting, but as milestones are coming up, how are we doing? You know, if we're going to miss one, tell us as soon as you know it that we're going to miss one. And then how are we going to, you know, how are we going to adjust to go forth? Because, you know, the one thing that is cast in stone is the, you know, the November town meeting. That is not going to change. And they have, you know, as you probably know, there is a fixed, a lot of events that have to happen for that date to be hit. So I guess what I'm asking for, what point, you know, a week, 2 weeks, how long before you can give us, look, this is my milestone plan. These are the things that we've got to do. And that in addition to the data, Matt, that includes the events that, okay, now you've got to put it all together and you got to produce charts and you got to do this. You know, what are your main, if you could just lay them out, the events and the timeline, and so we have something to anchor us with. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think what I'll suggest, or what I'll ask back to you is, rather than give you something today that is most likely to change, that will change the most once we get our hands on the data, what I'd like to do is get my hands on the majority of the information and then give you a timeline that's at least going based on some good information, as opposed to starting with one today that will for sure change.
I didn't mean to suggest we start looking at this today. But I mean, do you think getting your hands on the data, do you think that's a week, 2 weeks, what 3 weeks, what is it? You know, when would you be able to do that?
My goal is to have, I would say, the two primary data sources within, my hope is by the end of next week. And I think a little bit of that depends on a contract procurement process with AirDNA and Key Data. And I've done some prep work before I got the contract. I started that outreach just to make sure I was familiar with what I would receive from them. So, you know, and I think I'm waiting on the town for some data sources, and not like I'm stuck, but we're just back and forth working out data sources.
Yeah. So, you know, I can just speak for myself. You know, if I thought that like 2 weeks from today, we were going to see your first pass at like, here's my work plan. Here are the key milestones we've all got to be thinking about. That would satisfy me personally.
I would say that sounds like at this level, a reasonable goal. And why don't I confirm that once I regroup with my team, and as the first data sources come in, I'll let you know if we're tracking towards giving you a solid plan with control over the data.
Okay, that's the first unofficial milestone then, Matt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll add is, you know, different project management structures, everyone will communicate them a little bit differently. What I'll do is I'll come up with I'll bring the way my team likes to organize this work to you guys in our format. And if there's specific questions you have, I'll be happy to answer them. But I want to make sure I don't base the way we best operate on specific formats of project management from the group. If that works for you.
It does. Can I just continue on, Stacey? Because from
Sure.
something you just said.
Sure, we'll get to Dave next.
Yeah. So I think as we kind of move down this path, one thing we don't need to do it right now, but sometime during this meeting, we do have to figure out very specifically what we mean by us being the short-term, rental work group of 9 or 10 people, because with open meeting rules that some of us have already run afoul of, we need to make sure we know like how we're going to have our reviews with you, and who
this is something. This
Yeah.
is something that I'm gonna address later, because I want to talk
Right.
about the key pieces of information and how I think is best for us to interact to create consensus on those. So let's come back to that one later if you're all right with
Perfect.
that.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Great, Dave.
Thank you through you, Stacy, to Matt. My questions are just process questions, basically.
Yeah.
So that we all understand how this is gonna flow and roll. So you're gonna get the NARAB data from NARAB or from the UMass group? And will it already be processed at some level when you receive it?
So I think there's the ideal plan, which I think is probably not realistic, and then there's the in practice. My guess is the best outcome right now is sooner than later I interact with the UMass group to understand the likely formatting and basically the data headers that I'm going to get from them, as well as a level of, how big is the data set? Am I preparing to integrate, 50 fields, 500, 10,000, whatever. And then an understanding of when they're going to have a clean sample for me, and then when they'll have the full data set. And in that, hopefully there's some room for us to figure out ways that I can achieve that level of matching or pairing to remove duplicates, to ensure that if there's an opportunity for back and forth early on, I have a chance before they're done to get that information, or to work out some method to get the information I need without breaking their anonymization requirements from their client.
So that's going to limit what certain sets of raw data that you'll be able to get from them is the concern about the anonymity of the owners or whatever, correct?
Yeah. So do you want me to, just to make sure we're using language the same way? What
Yes.
I'd say is, imagine that I get one data set and it has 3 houses, 3 addresses, tells me their bedroom size, whatever, gives me 3 distinct units, and I know exactly where they are. And one's on Main Street, and one's on a cliff somewhere, and one's on Starbuck Road. And then I get another data set, and it says one house that is in this 300-yard area. And this is even a problem because not just the NARAB data will be anonymized, the AirDNA key data sets, some of them have exact data fields, and some of them have basically like within this radius. And so the uncertainty that we're working against, or the key thing to resolve, is how confidently can we say that this house and this house are the same, coming from different data sets, without the obvious and easy way, which is either some unique identifier or information that creates certainty around it. And so maybe it's in the same zone with the same characteristics and similar patterns, and that gives us and then you create a measurement to say the confidence on each of these decisions. So that's the specific challenge that we're working with.
Is that what you refer to as cleaning data?
No.
Okay.
No, that's on the integration and analysis. The cleaning is you give me a file, and before I can work with it, a significant amount of time gets spent kind of getting familiar with it, making sense of the uniqueness of who it came from, and the disorganization or the mistakes or the notes or the misspellings and the extra spaces that are in there that prevent you from running queries cleanly.
Okay, yeah, I got you. All right, so you'll get you're going to get your own data from DNA and from some other sources, but the NARAB data at some level will be processed by the time you get your hands on it.
That's my understanding. And that's another key thing that I'm going to just work to get more clarity on.
But you'll still have the ability to reconcile it and make sure that it's correct.
Until
At
I see it, I can't really commit
Okay.
to that
right.
answer, but
Okay. So once this all happens, you're going to give us a product. And that product will be distinctly separate from the UMass product? Or will yours be a combination of all the products together? Or all the sources together might be a better term.
so
I'm sorry.
no. It's, it's a good question. I'm just trying to make sure I answer it the right way. Our goal is to create one data set that is most complete and accurate. And by accurate, I mean like is representative of what's actually happening. And to some degree that will be imperfect. Our goal is to fill them in and make them complete and accurate. And then out of that, we will ask your questions essentially. And one thing we'll talk about later is as we get into the data and having a complete data set, or what we're going to call our complete data set, to what degree can these questions be answered? Are there versions of the questions that are better answered? Maybe that as we learn more that provide you a better kind of like reframe them towards a better question of what I believe your intent is. And those are the things that we'll back and forth. And so your deliverable is really the answers. And there will be a complete data set. And something I should check into is, because of the sensitive nature of some of this stuff, I don't actually know is the product you get a raw data set, or is the product the answers to your questions? And I'm happy whichever it ends up being, but I don't actually have certainty on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And visualizations that support your analysis, of course.
Kathy?
Just a couple things. Matt, will you be getting data element definitions from these sources so that you can, just because something's called number of bedrooms doesn't mean it's counted the same way? That's question one. Will you have those definitions so you can make that part of your analysis? And also overlap wise, because people's units would be in both data sets or in, I know that the key data, for example, takes out the duplicates between VRBO and Airbnb, for example. So if you're listed on both, it combines them. But that you're going to have to do the same thing with the NARAB data because people use both of those things. You don't want to count them twice and so forth. Yeah. So I'm sure you have that figured out. So the question about the data elements, will you have a definition of those so you can make sure they're defined the same way, or say they aren't defined the same way and we're going to count them that way, but they're a little different. That's fine. And also you brought up the raw data access, and I would just make the case that at least I, being a data nerd, just like you are, I don't care about the personalization part of it, that you could keep separate. But the question is, who owns the data once you put it together? And can we see the raw data for those of us that might want to pivot and look at things underneath the covers?
I'm going to first defer to Stacy on that question.
I mean, I'm unfortunately not going to be that helpful with an answer on that, Matt. I think that the answer is going to be based on what you are going to be allowed to do from the people who give you the data. So I think the group's strong preference, as Kathy said, is some access to this data, in order to peek under the hood if they so choose. And I think failure for us to be able to do that, has costs, I think, for the sake of everybody's trust. And but it's also the case that you're going to get what you get from NARAB, and how much of that you can share or not share. It may be that in order to get the level of verifiability so that you can deduplicate, we have to agree to not share it because they're giving us stuff that they don't want shared. Right. So I just think we have to work under that with those constraints in mind.
Yeah, so I'm going to use a visual analogy that I hope is helpful. And let's say there's 4 lanes of information coming towards us, and the distance upstream that we can go on each lane where the information becomes shareable or no longer is beyond what is allowed in the agreement of getting it is the point at which I can share that data. So if I get the NARAB data set at this level, I can't share anything before it because I didn't have it, but maybe that's the permission I'm given with that data. So obviously I can't share anything more than that. I could share everything downstream. But let's say that there's 2 data sets, let's make it simple, and one gets given to me here and the other's here. I could give you everything below both of these, but it's not complete. So then at that level, the complete data set is here down. And so these aren't restrictions I'm imposing because I want to hold on to it, or I don't want you to see what I'm doing. The first thing is the responsibility to any contracts I have to acquire the information. The second being providing you information that is useful and accurate for you to work within. And then the last part of that would be just any responsibilities I have towards the town that I'm just not maybe aware of yet. But my intention in this work is insight and feedback on data decision making is good.
Did you want to say something further on that, Kathy?
Just a question about the data elements. That was the first part.
Oh yes, yeah, I got that one. So one of my most important tasks, my other teammates will be in different parts of the work. My job is to translate, and I translate between people who have knowledge here, and they don't necessarily speak the same language. So in practice with you all, I will be working to create definitions and communicate them. And important part of integrating data sets is figuring out that they mean the same thing. Just because the headers are the same doesn't mean they're using the same units or the same have the same definitions. And if they are similar, and that's as best as we can do, we figure out what we have to do to bring them together or define the level of confidence. And if they are clean, then we agree with that. But yeah, creating a data dictionary and a definition of our terminology is an important part of sharing a data set that has this level of uncertainty or this level of variance in it, I suppose, one way to say it.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a long way to say yes.
Yes, that's okay. That's okay. And I just also on the key data information, when we
Please.
got it from them, we noticed that they included listings that were hotels, like the Nantucket Hotel and bed and breakfasts, because Airbnb, they advertised through Airbnb, so Airbnb had them, but they shouldn't count as STR. So you can tell them you don't even want that. Or
my feeling is always I'll take what they give me and I'll clean up the
throw
stuff
it
I don't
away.
need.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep.
Great. Any other questions? Yeah, Peter.
I think we have to be very careful about what independent data nerds could do on their own. I don't think Matt can share things with one person and not with everybody. And quite frankly, if you shared it with me, it'd be sharing it with the wall, because I have no idea how to negotiate through that stuff. So I think it's got to be the group. And I don't think that digging into the data by members of the group is relevant.
Okay.
I think digging into what you come up with is what the relevancy is important.
Yeah, and Peter, if I could just say to that, right, like absolutely, there's not going to be independent sharing of data with individuals that is not shared with the group. That is definitely not going to happen. I think the extent to which raw data might be shared, or whatever level of cleaned, data sets might be shared, will be like a trust building exercise only. So if, for example, if that data can be shared and someone in the group wants to go through and do their own analysis and they say, wait, I see something here that I disagree with Matt about, right? Let's just imagine for a second that happens and Kathy's like, well, I'm an expert on this. I looked at this. I have some questions for Matt. She'll bring those up publicly and all of that will get discussed in the group setting, right?
I wouldn't be looking for things that are wrong with it. I would just be looking for things I might say, hey, take a look at that. And then something that may not have occurred to him. That's all.
Yeah, exactly.
But it would all go through Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. So since this is a subgroup meeting, I allow primary and alternate members to participate. So Robin, please feel free to ask your question.
Hi, Matt. So I just wanted to flag, first of all, it's great that you're digging into this, diving in head first into this ball of confusion. It's more of a flag for you to be aware of, which is platform validity. And the reason I raise this is Granick has presented a map of different homes that were registered. And I believe that the greatest number of listings in that map were by TripAdvisor. And if you basically survey people who rent their homes, TripAdvisor basically does virtually no rentals. And the other issue with TripAdvisor is because they are also owned by Expedia, they duplicate listings. So a lot of their listings are on VRBO. So immediately, and you also have hotel rooms, as Kathy mentioned, the issue with hotel rooms and B&Bs. So you may get a lot of noise from certain platforms that really have little to no validity in what you're doing. So TripAdvisor is one that I would flag.
Got it. Thank you.
Great. Okay, Matt, turning back to you. If there's more you want to say about sort of communication and engagement with the group, and then any questions you might have for them up front. They might have already started answering some of those, but
Yeah. So I'm just looking on my agenda over here. Yeah, so I think the important things for me are there's always more data sets out there. I'll be transparent with everyone about what data sets I am using, but I don't know what I don't know. And if there's some, whether it be a helper table that might validate some assumption or a primary data set, shout stuff out, probably send it either, Stacey, would it be to you or to me through the group or whatever the proper process is. That's the last thing that I really want to talk about, or the process of how you all interact with me. So I'm following the rules here. And so there's questions around finding data sources, and any leads are always valuable. I think a unique thing about this project is I don't have a central point of contact who accesses me to all the current data. I'm really just working that on my team and my end. And I feel comfortable with my connections to be able to get all that, but don't hold back if you know about information. Second would be definitions. And some of the work that you've all been participating in is around creating agreement on certain definitions. When you have those and when they're agreed upon, I'd love to have them because those make my life easier, give me more focus, and I have to deal with less uncertainty once you have those. I'll probably also let you know which words I would love to have consensus and definition of as I know them, as I become aware. Let's see, questions, definitions, data sets. And then to John's question, I will, once I have enough information and hands-on with the data, I'll be giving you, hey, here's what I expect right now. Here's our timeline. And when we check in every time, we'll let you know how it changes. And perhaps, John, to your point, if something major changes, on the day following a meeting, I won't wait 9 days or 10 days to let you know. I'll let you guys know.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And just to add to that, so my sense is, the best way to communicate with Matt and his team is through me. So that I am certainly in the loop, and also to just protect him a little bit from just all the messages that any individual member might be wanting to send. But that said, if I know some of you have leads on particular data or things like that, those you should feel free to just send him. So if it's like, hey, here's a lead on a data source, go ahead and send that. But anything that would either require him to respond to you or would be something that you think would be important for everybody in the group to know, please send through me.
Yeah.
And my expectation is that you know, as we as we have on our work plan, right? Matt's going to be coming to our next couple of meetings, bi-weekly meetings, and he's going to be giving updates as he goes. And we can call a subgroup meeting if there are questions or issues that come up where Matt needs input from the group between those meetings, or you all have issues that you really feel like are important to get discussed about this agenda as we go. So that is, John.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, I guess what I want to make sure we leave you with is, you know, as you get started in this, my guess is that in the first couple of weeks, you may have a question a day that you want answered that day or the next day, not, you know, a week from now and all of that. So I think, Stacy, you know, if that's what I think we need to just be sure of is, as Matt's got these probably not earth-shattering questions, but questions that will hold him up if he doesn't get a fairly quick answer. How can we make it easy for him to get that? And
call Stacy.
Sorry, go ahead.
He calls Stacy. That's how he does it. He can't call any of us.
Well, yeah, but let's just, Stacy, when you think about your day, you know, is this something that really only you can do, or is Simanesh, or I just think we're setting Matt up for a problem if we don't have an easy, quick way to get him answers to fairly simple questions.
Yeah, I mean, I think, John, I'm just trying to imagine a question that he would turn to one group member with, that one group member could give him an answer.
No, I don't mean we should
Wouldn't
do
be
that.
me,
I mean,
right?
how can we make it easier, though? Like, does he?
So let me, I have an example. I think if I'm looking for certain feedback on, say, the town data sets, I'd want to have a direct line of contact with the person who owns that data set at the town, so that I don't have to bring those questions to you all. I'd call up the assessor and ask him to clarify the definition of something. So does that, that would be one example.
And that's not an issue our group would need to deal with, right? Like,
right.
So I mean, I'm just trying to understand, John, what it is you're like. I'm trying to envision a scenario so that I could see what it is that we would.
I can't give you the scenario because I'm not a data analytics person, but I know a
suggestion. My suggestion here is that when I plan timelines, I think in terms of hours, days, and weeks. Hours is doing the work. Days is things that you got to sleep on and think about to crack the code. And weeks are when things go back and forth. I don't know, legal documents, weeks, because it sits on one desk and sits on another. And I think let me get through the first round of questions. And once I have a better sense of what the questions are and what type of answers I need, I can figure out what the risk is into the timeline of those questions. And then in our next meeting, or sooner if we need, through Stacy, I can figure out the access I need to group members to address them.
Sounds good.
And I think that, you know, the other thing is I'm perfectly fine to just prophylactically set up a couple of, right, because we need 48 hours notice to have a subgroup meeting. I'm happy to just set up a few of those on the weeks in between, to set up a data subgroup meeting standing between the weeks that we don't have these meetings, and we'll use it if we need it. But even these meetings, we can't make decisions. So if, for example, Matt's like, I need to know how you want to define natural persons, which is one where I already told him, I think the group has a pretty clear vision of what they want for that, right? Let's use the Palm Springs definition, but let's imagine we didn't. And he's like, well, I'm trying to crunch the data. You asked for information about how many are owned by natural persons. What do you mean by natural persons? If there's something that requires the consensus of the group, it's going to have to go to the full group. right? So my best guess in between those will be like, well, here's 3 ways, try crunching it all 3, bring all 3 to the group, and we'll go from there, right? That's, I think, how we'll have to try and handle these things. So Kathy, sorry, just trying to read your message, but you want to just speak to it?
Kathy, you're still on mute.
I would just kind of clarify, because there seemed to be some concern, and any role that any one of us has in this, I think, obviously goes through you to Matt, would be to help try to save him some time, or his team some time, if we have some information or some guidance, like what does this mean, to offer it to him, or if we see something, any one of us sees something that might be of use, to just pass that along, not to interrupt his process or usurp it in any way. So I just wanted to clarify that was what I thought would be useful.
I think all of that is fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so with that, Matt, were there any other questions you had about definitions at this stage, or about data sources? I think you got some good insights from the group already about, key data and assessor and TripAdvisor warnings, etc.
Yeah.
But any other questions you wanted to ask at this time?
Yeah, I had one. So Kathy, you had that conversation with key data. Is there a contract that I could step into, or is there access to a complete data? Basically, my question is, what is the fastest way towards getting that complete data set? And if I'm picking between AirDNA and key data, or both, I just want to, while we're in the whole group, get all the information I can quickly on that topic.
I don't know anything about air data, and we have no contract with anybody. This was just a request to see a data dashboard, which means there is no raw data behind it.
Got it.
So it is just, what we gave them was the data element, the data definitions that the short-term rental work group had said they wanted. So here's the answers we want, which are probably not complete, but they're as complete as we know. That's the same thing that was in your RFQ, and said, we'd really like to have this, please, please, please. And after begging for several years, they gave it to us. So that's really what it is. And it's, so it's fun to play with it. It's not a complete data set, but in some ways, it's an interesting perspective to look at the online platform separately from the real estate, because maybe there's a difference. Maybe there isn't. But that's one thing that I just thought was interesting just to see, because we have seen 0 numbers on anything. So it was just an interesting exercise. And I don't have any contact there. We didn't pay for it. We don't have a contract. They just gave it to us because we begged.
Got it. Persistence pays off.
Yeah, maybe there was like 2 years. They're like, shut up, here, have it. So they deduplicate, I think, by using that Massachusetts registry number. And I know that data set has that number right there. You can see it in the VRBO data. I know Airbnb collects it, but it wasn't in the data that I could see that they gave us. So I couldn't see that, but I know in using Airbnb, you have to provide that Massachusetts number, or they will not allow you to rent on their platforms.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah, it's all really helpful.
And sorry, I know you touched on this briefly, Kathy, but do you know what the difference is between key data and AirDNA?
I think they're both data aggregators. So I am guessing that if VRBO and Airbnb sent their data up to those data aggregators, they would come out with the same thing. I don't know anything about data aggregators. Maybe they'll come up with the same thing, maybe they wouldn't, and I don't know what the processes are, but they both are in the same business. That's what they do.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it does seem like then, because I don't know, maybe one leaves one platform out and one, who knows? But for the sake of completeness, if what we're really trying to get is the most complete set, Matt, and we do have the resources and that doesn't slow our timeline, it does seem like go ahead and get both, see what we can do.
Yeah.
Robin.
Yeah, just to clarify, Matt, key data is solely Airbnb and VRBO. And they are overwhelmingly, in terms of the online platforms, my sense is they are 95% of volume. So neither VRBO nor Airbnb will provide their raw data because they are concerned about competitive analysis, but they're happy to provide it to a third party like Key Data to anonymize it and then present the results. So AirDNA may, and I think that may be where Granicus ran into trouble, is and ended up skewed as a 1-bedroom median and mean in terms of STR size, which immediately we knew was wrong. That was confirmed by the Key Data, which was at 3.5, and still, even within Key Data, they had to remove some hotel and bed and breakfast information. But AirDNA captured other platforms, and I think including TripAdvisor, which is why Granicus may have run into trouble.
Got it. Okay. Stacey,
There's also, just so you know, there's also a kind of a local platform called We Need a Vacation.
familiar.
They have about 100 homes, which are probably not duplicated from other places. I don't know, maybe they are, but I did contact the woman who runs that, and she's willing to provide data if you want it.
Cool. I think they've been around the longest. They're the original, maybe.
Yeah, they are.
And who doesn't need a vacation?
That's right. We need a vacation.com. There you go.
And Kathy, I don't know, Matt, if that helps you, but Kathy, if you have the contact person, you could just
Sure.
send that directly to
I
Matt.
already asked her for the data, but I will say she should send it directly to you. I don't have any need for it, but
That'd be awesome.
their model is different in that they don't, unlike the real estate agencies and the other online platforms, they don't actually collect the rent and collect the STR taxes. They don't do that. The owners do that. So that kind of information wouldn't be available from them. I don't know that we have that much interest in how much rent gets paid by anybody, but that's a little different model.
Yeah. Okay, in our last couple of minutes here, and I know Rebecca, at least you're in here from the public, so if you wanted to answer or ask a question, or if anyone else has any other questions or comments before we close. Kathy?
Sorry, just one more question on that. I would like to get an understanding at some point when you know what the data ownership rules are going to be.
Sure.
Who owns the data? I mean, I'm wondering, yeah, because the town might have to sign contracts that says this part is not, we keep the ownership or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I just don't want to give you the wrong answer. So let me start looking into that as I get my hands on the data, and knowing that different data sets might have their own rules as well. So
Thanks.
noted that that's important, and I'll keep you informed on that.
Great. So you all will be hearing an update from Matt at our next short-term rental work group meeting on the 28th. If he has questions that he needs you all for before then, he will come through me. I will reach out to all of you, and vice versa. Please let me know if things are coming up for you that you would like further information from Matt, or to give him more information. And with that, I think let's close out our meeting. Thank you all for being here, and have a great weekend.
You as well.
Yeah,
Thank
great.
you all.
Nice
Great
to meet you, Matt.
Good luck,
I
Matt.
look forward to it. Thank you.
Matt.
Bye.
Look forward to working
Bye.
with you. Good to see
Same.
everyone.